A cultura é um dos mais preciosos instrumentos de democracia. É um canal de expressão plural que permite a convivência de diferentes vozes, histórias e visões de mundo. E por isso a cultura, tal qual a democracia, deve ser defendida e fortalecida. Essa é a função da Lei Rouanet, a principal política pública de incentivo à cultura brasileira. Com ela, perseguimos a missão de assegurar o acesso democrático à produção e à difusão cultural. Ao longo de mais de 3 décadas, a Rouanet permitiu que inúmeras iniciativas culturais, antes inviáveis, ganhassem o mundo. Revelou histórias, preservou tradições e transformou vidas. Lei Rouanet, há 33 anos, tornando a cultura brasileira mais plural, acessível e democrática.
Casal de dançarinos se olham sorridentes. Uma banda orquestrada para de tocar. Logos: Lei Rouanet, Ministério da Cultura, Governo Federal, Brasil, União e Reconstrução.
Onde tem cultura, a Vale está. No poder criativo que nasce dos palcos, orquestras, das artes, das ruas e dos museus. Na valorização das diversas identidades brasileiras e na preservação de memórias. É valorizando a cultura que crescemos e evoluímos juntos. Instituto Cultural Vale.
Ministério da Cultura e a Associação Casa Azul apresentam 23ª FLIP, Festa Literária Internacional de Paraty. A FLIP conta com o benefício da Lei Federal de Incentivo à Cultura, Lei Rouanet, PRONAC 235060, e possui acessibilidade para pessoas com deficiências física, visual e auditiva. Tem patrocínio Jequitibá do Nubank. Patrocínio Figueira da Vale. Patrocínio Guapuruvu do Itaú e da Motiva, por meio do seu instituto. Patrocínio Cedro do Sesc, da MAC Móveis e de O Globo. Patrocínio Araribá, da Globo Livros. Apoio institucional da Prefeitura de Paraty, Governo do Estado do Rio de Janeiro, IFAM, Instituto do Patrimônio Histórico e Artístico Nacional e Museu do Território. É uma criação e realização Associação Casa Azul e Ministério da Cultura, Governo Federal, Brasil, União e Reconstrução. FLIP, o encontro da literatura com a cidade.
Meu nome é Aguimar Júnior dos Santos Seixas, conhecido em Paraty como Júnior Peixe. Sigo sempre a cultura caiçara, que é buscar o seu próprio alimento, trabalhar com a natureza, respeitando a natureza, a mata. Meus avós ensinou para mim sempre isso, que você planta e um dia você vai colher. Você pesca o que você vai comer. Eu planto num barco, entendeu? Eu tenho plantas medicinais dentro do meu barco, tem bastante tempero, né? Eu aqui, eu me considero como zelador, né? Eu sempre falo para os meus amigos, galera, vamos ser zelador do lugar que a gente vive. Estou entrando numa mata para colher o meu cacau, que eu plantei quando eu tinha 16 anos de idade. É uma praia secreta aqui em Paraty. A aparição de baleia, golfinho, tartaruga, isso aparece para quem só está conectado mesmo com a natureza. Tem muitas pessoas que falam, eu queria tanto ver. E aí, você está conectado com a natureza? A natureza ela te dá. Esses são os presentes dela. É porque a gente tem esse elo com a natureza, né? A natureza está na gente já, né?
Roundtable of Saturday, but tomorrow morning we have our last roundtable at Flip with Sérgio Vaz and Luis Pereira. It will be beautiful with many things for us to continue spreading poetry. I would like to thank the Portugal Embassy in Brazil and Instituto Camões who supported the trip for Ricardo Pereira. Just a very short thing about languages, which is one of the topics here. A verb that we use during Flip is mediate. I mediated. And I said, I mediate. And Bete Leite says, it's wrong. It's horrible. So it's medeio. So that's how you say the verb. It's medeia and not media. So I did this roundtable with Caetano Galindo and Jana and a Portuguese witness to try to change this verb for once and for all, because it should be mediar. Eu medeio. So I would like to invite Jana Viscardi, a linguist. She has a channel on YouTube and she teaches things every day, like reading newspapers. And she could also teach newspapers or journalists how to write headers for their newspaper. Jana, you have the floor.
Obrigada. Oi, boa noite. Esse grito é a família, viu? Certo?
Probably this is my family here supporting me, so I would just like to invite all those who are going to brush against Camões, Ricardo, Araújo, Pereira, and Caetano Galindo. Well, if you have any questions, please feel free to send them in writing. You have a little piece of paper there in front of you. If you are outside, I don't know where, for you guys in the, you guys there outside, oh, there you are. Thank you very much for being here. And I would like to thank the organizers. Oh my God, we're being pampered, I'm telling you. I feel like Madonna because I want to stay here forever. I'm gonna stay, I'm here. This is a feminist. I'm gonna say, not them. Something like that. So I decided to very briefly talk about who they are. You probably already know. But anyways, I'm going to briefly talk about their biographies. I guess the first important information regarding Ricardo, for instance, is that he is a partner 2049 of Sport Lisboa and Benfica. Go Benfica! He was born in Lisbon. He did social communication. He was born in Lisbon in 1974. He is a big hit on TV. He has a podcast that is the origin of his book. And we will talk about that today, which is a coisa que não edifica nem destrói. Whatever, it doesn't build and it doesn't destroy. And he has a project, a very interesting project, which was Smelly Cat. So you can see all the videos on the internet. I found one, and it was a linguist who was able to talk everything with just 4 words. It was amazing, a lot of fun. So he's there since 2003. They started in 2003 with Miguel Góes, Zé Diogo Quintela, Thiago Dores, and also Ricardo Araújo himself. Here, he created and he has this podcast, which is things that neither edifies or destroys. And he has a number of books that were published before things that neither edifies or destroys. And since we're talking about a literary festival, I decided to bring all his books. Not necessarily in an order, but we have Estar Vivo, Machuca, the best chronicles of Quadrajone Pereira. Here in Brazil, he once a week we have access to what Ricardo does there. And we also have A Doença, o Sofrimento e a Morte, Go in a Bar. It is something that we are updating for 2 linguists and a Portuguese going to the bar to go into flip to talk about humor. So a Portuguese talking about humor, and we make so many jokes about Portuguese, right? So anyways, so not only that, we have a book, if you don't understand it, I'll tell you again. And this is En Por Hora É Isso, but he has many others. To my other side, next to Ricardo, Caetano, my dear friend. Thank God he's my friend, because I publicly asked him to become my friend. He's also a linguist, and I want to call my own. A linguist to call my own. So Caetano Galindo was born in Curitiba. He is a professor in Curitiba. He's many things. He's a poet. He writes, he's a playwright, he's a translator. And here I already start by saying that we have, just to, the life of a translator isn't easy. There's this amazing translation by Galindo of Ulysses. There's someone saying that these are translators, so we try to remind all those who translate. Every time we read a book in a foreign language, there's always a translator behind. And this book was translated by someone. Leminski also was also a translator, among other things, and also from Curitiba. So another similarities with Caetano. So Caetano translated Ulysses, and then he made a book to talk about the translation of Ulysses. And then he came up with this book that I will advertise every single day. And they could hire me as maybe an advertiser. Powdered Latin in a free translation, Latim em pó in Portuguese, and it does the whole history of Portuguese language. What is Portuguese? And then he published Lia. This is a novel, a beautiful novel. I'm a big fan. So, so many comments here. And now, this year, he was not ready to stop publishing. He decided to publish Na Ponta da Língua, on the tip of the tongue, Portuguese from head to toe. So I guess there's an element that brings the 2 elements together. So let's applaud them. They're amazing. So there's an element that will bring these 2 figures together, and it's humor, I guess. One of the elements for us to consider language. It's so interesting. And both of them are very good-humored. I'm always laughing. I write ha ha ha, and I make these little arrows. It's so interesting what they do with humor. And first, to start this conversation that will brush Camões language. We would talk about laughter, humor, languages, the changes in languages. I thought about maybe reading an excerpt also for us to connect with Leminski. And I'm going to use that to Leminski. I made a presentation in '86, if I'm not mistaken, in which the topic was the word passion or love, and he will talk about passion and how it's in vogue. Is it in vogue, or is it the word passion that is in vogue, and we are no longer in love? It's a beautiful text. And at a given moment, he says that Funati is doing very well, and inviting him to do that, to talk about passion, because what he thinks about a disappearing of passion. It's like a toucan, it's like a peixe boy that was, in the Amazon and disappeared. It is the boto, a type of dolphin. It is the mico, it's the Brazilian leopard, all these things that are in extinction. And this is why today we are trying to revisit, covering this through the different seminars, and it will be seen in different works. So please, passion, come to me. I guess humor's a bit, you have to invite humor in. And at another moment he would say, and this is what interests me to kick off this conversation. I am not a professor. I am not a theorist. I'm an artist. I'm a poet. I try to reflect about what I do, but I never left behind my passion for reflection about what I do. I am not a theorist. I am a type of thinker, a wild thinker, and in this sense that talks about wild capitalism, something that will show an experience. It has to be wild.
Ser canalizado por programas, por roteiros, tem que ser mais ou menos.
It has to be done through programs and scripts. It has to be the paths of passion. So it's a bit crazy to do poetry. This is something that doesn't work for anyone. If you think about the logics of this world, as Jesus would say, it's madness. And also Rosa Montero said the same thing. We talked about madness. So about this wildness, the wild thought, whatever comes to us before the text reaches us. So I want to know this from you. Galindo is a college professor, and in a certain state, he will let us know if we should think this or that way. And Ricardo on TV, he writes, he has a podcast. So these are different languages, and they are different languages. How do you manage this wild way of thinking?
Well, first, I would like to start by thanking every single one of you, in spite of really scaring me to death. Yes, I don't know. We really feel comfortable. Can't you see? We feel totally at home and relaxed up the stage. But I really want to thank Flip's organizing committee, in spite of the fact that putting me in this spot, in this horrible position, I'm really nervous, I'm tired. I'm the only one here that after a whole day, I have the responsibility to look intelligent beside the greatest comedian in Portugal. So, difficult, isn't it?
Sobre pensamento selvagem, eu não sei exatamente o que dizer.
Okay, so wild thought. Well, what can we say about that? The path of my career, university career as in running a career. It has been difficult in many ways. And I have said many times, there is a saying by David Foster Wallace that says, in the end, you ultimately become yourself. And we have roadmaps, ideas, but at a given point in time, we're the same age, Ricardo and myself. You realize that you have to admit that you've become what you had to become. You arrived in this place where you were destined to become. And the wild thought, if you are disciplined, or if you're not satisfied following roadmaps or career maps that are well-defined, defined, tried and tested, they work, you insist and say, no, I want to do something else, something different. You don't want to resist the temptation of doing things like Oscar Wilde. and many other authors that decided to go a different way. I was invited to write a play. I was invited to translate a book. I will translate. I was invited. My brother calls me to write a novel. Okay, a paperback or something. Yes, okay. And I don't know. It'll get me. It'll get me there. It get me somewhere. It doesn't build. It doesn't destroy. But it's fun for me, and for me ultimately, it could be the permanent manifestation of what that. Everything that you read about Leminski, I didn't pay attention because actually I was thinking about something else when you read the poem. But I caught one word here and there, and the word passion. Passion is very important. And if there's something that puts everything together, is the spirit of thinking about something because you're really excited, because something really interests you. And if something turns me on, motivates me, is to reach my students or you, the audience here that are terrifying me, saying, look, take a look at this. Isn't this fantastic? This piece of information of the history of language, this information on the formation of this word, this joke, this book. Isn't this amazing? I've given whole classes with the lyrics of a song, reading the lyrics for 1.5 hours. And I tell my students, isn't this amazing, the lyrics of a music? And I try to transmit this passion and keep this alive. It is a way, I don't know if it's wild or rational, but it's an interesting way of making things productive and making things new.
Olá.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I would like to begin by guaranteeing to all of you that this language I am speaking is the same that you speak. I want you to know that. I know it doesn't seem the same. I mean, in this continent, it seems like something different, as if it's a type of Spanish, maybe. I don't know. When I came to Rio de Janeiro and I gave my passport to the gentleman there in customs, and he looked at my passport, and whatever it's written Portugal, he stamped, gave it back, and said, "Bienvenido." So I just wanted to make that clear to all of you. It is the same language. With regards to Leminski, it's difficult, like a wild thinker. I really would love this definition to apply to me. I will accept the part that I'm wild, but not as a thinker. Less a thinker, more a wild one. But what I try to do is to produce humor-like way of thinking, a humorous way of thinking. And it's a type of wild thinking, I guess. I mean, it's not structure. It's not the normal way we think. The book, there's a chapter on a person that in the British called a trickster. Maybe in their imagination, those who speak Portuguese will define this as the malandro, a trickster. And there's this, in the Middle East, there's something called Nasruddin Roger. It is that type of, this type of a trickster, this malandro in Portuguese. And he will tell you many stories. There's a very interesting story. So this guy, the trickster, is looking for something there that fell. And then this man said, "What are you looking for?" And he says, "I'm looking for my keys." I said, "Where did you lose your keys?" And I said, "Inside my house." And said, "Why are you looking for it here?" I said, "Because there's more light here." So this guy is very intelligent or very stupid. It's very difficult to have a clear answer because it's more sensible to look for something where there's light than where there's no light. So now let's talk about the elephant in the room. All the jokes you make against Portuguese or with Portuguese, it's always a bit uncomfortable for me because you guys, you know what you've done. You know very well what you did. So in all the jokes with Portuguese, it's always this type of person, the stupid one. There's a different logic. For instance, I'm going to conclude by saying this. You already know that scene of Jesus Christ. He's seeing the adulteress and says, "If you never done wrong, please throw the first rock." And then the Portuguese will hit right in the middle of the head and said, "Jesus, you never got it wrong." And the Portuguese said, "Not from this distance."
Reparem que é raciocínio.
So it's just perfectly plausible. Well, you see, you get it wrong if you never missed. In Portuguese, get it wrong and miss, it's the same thing if you throw something. So you have to just make it clear for Portuguese. Yes, so now it's clear the elephant in the room was dealt with.
Elemento que me chamou a atenção.
There's another thing that caught my attention, not only humor in both your writings, was this relation with was it small, the tiny, the detail, the nitty-gritty, something that not everyone pays attention to, and it's the importance this for humor is important, and also the place that this has for a linguist or even for a translator, someone who's interested in getting to know what is the best way to look at that specific word. And I would like you maybe to talk a little bit about this. It's as if it were a party. You're looking at that party. You see that little tiny thing in the middle, and people might not see what you see. You see that detail. And this sometimes has a greater weight and importance that called my attention in both your texts. So my taste for what is insignificant, what is tiny, is important. It is an interesting, humorous operation to be connected to things that do not deserve all their attention. There's a chapter in my book about flies, because a fly is interesting because I believe it shares different features with a comedian. Because it's tiny, their obsession with shit and with excrements, and it's a bit, it's really irritant, and it's bothers us, and it's so tiny, and it will generate. It's harmless, but it's still. It irritates us, and we as a society, we think that the fly, when we give the fly the same treatment we give to the worst criminal, which is kill it by electrocution. So it's disproportionate for such a tiny little animal. It's harmless, and every time I see that tiny little thing, and over which I can establish my theory, and I'm always amazed. The other day, I got in my car and I put my GPS. I put an address on my GPS, and the GPS asked me, "Do you accept your destination?" And for the first time, because of a type of distraction or magnetation, that question popped into my mind, because destination and destiny are the same word in Portuguese. So I thought that I was in a Sophocles play all of a sudden. And it was difficult for me to answer that positively, because I was just going out to buy a beer or something. And I said, should I accept that this is my destiny? To buy a beer, should I accept that risk of, feel all the depth? And I have gone through the fruits, and I'm walking towards the beer, and then you feel like, are you going to go for the Pilsen or the black beer, or what are you going to buy? So it seemed to me that it was like a bit too much. It was a very heavy destiny for me to accept, so I just turned off my car and I went back home. I turned off the motor and went back home. So these are the tiny things that make a difference. These little tiny things. Sometimes that come to me today, for instance. There's a new profession called influencer. To become an influencer is a profession. And maybe Professor Galindo could help us. There's an issue because the language issue of presenting yourself as an influencer. What is the first step you take, essential first step to take to become an influencer, to influence something? It's not to reveal that person that you're trying to influence them. That's the first step. because people naturally will resist. They don't want to be influenced. So if you present yourself, I am an influencer, it's the same thing as saying, I'm a abominator or something like that. It won't have the same effect.
What can I do now? What can I say after this? My accent is not even funny. I mean, what can I do now? I told Ricardo when I met him, I said, okay, you have to understand and remember that we don't have an accent in Brazil. I come from Curitiba, which is the place in which accents go to die. We are gloomy, down, uninterested. And Giovanna said, and I felt such warmth in the heart. Yes, the two of us from Curitiba. Come on, let's do it. Let's try to save the accent from Curitiba. And I'm not even doing that. I don't sound funny. But the thing about the small things, okay. There's a very simple answer. With big things, it's difficult, isn't it? And I can't take it. It's too much for me. It has a bias, a personality bias. It's Sandra, my wife. She thinks big. She understands historical patterns, time scales. I don't even know in which century things take place when I talk about things, but I'm fascinated by the minute. I'm fascinated by the minute, and as a paradox, could help you understand the large thing in a new work. I'm obsessed about metaplasms, which are phenomena in the evolution of vocabulary. And this can maybe lead you to writing my book, Powdered Latin. And it is weird to say that, but in general, large things are made up of small things. And if you start from the small thing, this passion, this desire to unveil what is hidden, which is really fascinating. It's fascinating for me, and is the common thing that I find between scientific or literary research and humor, which is this. Just let me talk about this, that people don't realize what's hidden, what nobody paid attention, what's behind the curtain, and I will unveil it and show it as worthy of merit, of attention. And it has a productive thing, and then I'm doomed to that. It's like an obsession. It's what I do, and that's what I can do.
Eles agora estão ficando bem mais amistosos.
This is what I can do, and they applaud me. Thank you, thank you. Please keep it up. Caetano, thank you for trying. You go, boy. I thought maybe you could read an excerpt of the last book, each one. What do you think? Yes.
Like this, out of nowhere, without rehearsing or anything? Okay, come on, it's page 20. Come on. Caetano, you, page 20. Okay, yes. Let's pretend we didn't rehearse. Yes. I read yours.
I'm going to read a text from Professor Galindo. I'm trying to make him less Portuguese, because then we innovate this whole idea of mediation. Oh, the mediator said this, and then question for this. So let's read the next. So they're innovating. Do you like it? How do you like the news? So that's how we are. So I'm going to read an excerpt of Na Ponta da Língua and Portuguese from head to toes. Our Portuguese from head to toes. Here's our Portuguese from head to toes, sitting right here next to us. Before I start, this will refer to the word omelette. You know it here at omelete in Portuguese. I call it an omelette. I'm going to say it differently. As a geologist that knows how to understand the movements of the past and the different landmarks that are in the present, a person who is trained in the universe of linguistics, of history, is able to consider with a considerable certainty not only the origin, but even the path of a certain word without looking at the references. Where it came from, where she came from, and when she arrived. These questions are frequently answered only with the use of a repertoire. Knowledge, rules, curiosities, creativity. I normally tell my students when they ask me for the origin of this or that word, that when I'm in silence for 1 second before I answer, I'm not trying to remember that information that I already read and remembered. I'm trying to rebuild the paths that are more feasible to find a clear explanation. So in my mind, I have like a reverse engineering, a process that isn't simple. It is said that in order to make an omelet, you crack the eggs. But and to rebuild the original eggs, you will find the laws of entropy. Do you want to see a perfect example of this? In Latin, there was the word lamina. Where does it come from? Our word lamina, a blade. It has the same sense. Lamina, the Latin lamina, was a bit summarized and became lamna. And then it became lama, where the French lame with the same sense, a blade. But here things go crazy because lamelle, which would be a tiny blade, there's an alteration called lamette. And then there's a big mix-up because la lamette is a little tiny blade that is then called la lamette. And then the word becomes alamette. Another important change happens, and then the consonants change places, and they become amalette. Another improbability happens, and then all of a sudden you have the word omelette. Can you believe it? How can an omelette is flat? It could be a little tiny blade, but what a crazy mess, phonetic mess happened to reach the current form of the word. Because we wanted him to say the word forrobodó, which we mix up.
It is, we wanted to make Ricardo pronounce forrobodó in Portuguese from Brazil. Okay, about flies. We do not understand flies and the reason why they exist. He has a thing with flies. It's useless. It's not admirable like the bee or the ant, which are workers. They're a pain. They're greedy. As we all know, if you try to have a picnic in peace, they say they have an insatiable sexual appetite. They are dirty, obsessed, not only for shit, but for any dead thing. It's associated to death, to the demon. Etymologic dictionaries clarify that the word Beelzebub, one of the names of the devil, come from the Hebraic term that says Lord of the Flies. And yet, the creation gave her a sophisticated defense system that makes it almost impossible to catch her. Who does the creator like most? Me, that many times I cannot even deviate from threats that are in front of me, or a fly, that they're capable to deviate from enemies coming from all sides? It's me or the fly? In which of these two animals did they invest more in protection and safety? I think that the answer is obvious. And there's more. Some days ago, I learned that scientists discovered that flies buzz in the note fa. Well, flies. All of the flies in the world, when they fly, they produce the musical note fa. The care that was given to the creation of these flies, the detail with which this task was performed is such that something or somebody gave attention to these very small details. These flies buzz in tune, and the millimetric detail in which the flies fly is totally against the noise my knees do when I climb the steps of a ladder, each one in their note.
Eu queria perguntar para você sobre a
I wanted to ask about etymology, your new book that you're going to look into the origin of the words, etymology of the word, and how they transform in time. And there's this funny thing you talk about this when people use it when they graduate. You talk about passion, the etymology of the word passion, and sometimes in the beginning of a speech, different notes. You try to put etymology in the origin, and there's also an etymology that people are so connected to it that as if it weren't possible for the language to transform itself. So if you could maybe talk to us about this etymology, how it's seen in general, and sometimes a bit biased maybe. What could you tell us about this?
Well, it's sort of weird. It's a commonplace, at least in my path. The lasting thing, you turn the first page, and it says, according to Aurelius Dictionary, a co-worker, a colleague, first of all, use Wise Dictionary, but it makes no sense because I even talk about this in my book. The meaning of the word etymology is not the study of the origin, is the study of truth. And there is a belief, and I mean a belief rooted in the Bible, that one day words had their original meaning, complete, pure, and motivated. And with time, they became detached from this meaning and became this mess we use every single day. And people in the time of existential crisis, Lacanian or whatever, they want to go back to this pure sense or meaning of the word. And they say, no, 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 this word actually means this or that. This is the original meaning behind this word. And it's nonsense. I mean, words evolve ever since the world is the world, and it's beyond what we even have registered. We don't know the real origin of these radicals, and we have, yes, the history of the part that can be reconstructed in the successive alterations of meanings of the word. The word colleague, companion, etymology is the one that divides bread with you. Pan with you. It's in Spanish, the word, in Portuguese, the word bread is pan. It means nothing to the fact that my daughter has a companion, a mate, with whom she lives. They're not eating bread together. They're living together. So, I mean, my daughter is gluten intolerant and she still has a mate, a companion. And it has nothing to do with the effective use of the word companion. So the effective use of words are defined in a constant rule elaboration, definitions. Words are defining and fighting against one another, and that's a real use of language. And there's a different layer of meaning in this story, which is the fact that, and I've always tell my students and friends, that nobody is better equipped to deal with fake news and fight against fake news than us, linguists. First, because we, forever and ever, our authority has been questioned, and physicians, lawyers, they say, yes, now nobody asks you anything. People check up things on Google, and people think that my opinion is not important. I have no authority because Google knows better. And second, because of the structure of the functioning of fake news is exactly, as we were saying backstage, of the endless false and invented etymologies that circulate on internet, in books, everywhere. It's like fake news. To do something with your thighs has a meaning with the slavery. No, nothing to do with that. 20 reasons. Nevertheless, the fake news is tastier, is nice to tell, it's interesting. And that's the mechanism of a fake news. I create a narrative that's shorter, more interesting, it's easy to reproduce, and is sort of hide. I mean, it's the truth reveals the truth that they don't want you to know, but I will reveal it to you. And it's a myth. It's a myth. I mean, truth, first, is unattainable, and second, it's undesirable, and third, it's probably less sexy and less crunchy than the fake news they tell you. It'll be less crunchy. It'll be a succession of explanations or ideas. Maybe, probably, there's a probability that this is like this and this is not. And that explanation is not potentially sexy or interesting. And we have to write a whole book talking about these things. And then, yes, you might be successful.
Yes, we saw this example. There was this store, this furniture store, and they had this ad with the word criado mudo. It's a Portuguese word called the death butler or something like that, but it's your stand, your nightstand. And you would talk about the origin of the word nightstand in Portuguese would be a mute butler. And Caetano said that it's not what you think it is. So the path that these conversations have are interesting. They are even appropriated by the wild capitalism. And another idea, when you have your nightstand, which is called criado mudo in Portuguese, this store said, try to find products online, and you put in criado mudo, and what will show up is, did you mean a nightstand? and not your mute butler, so that you won't use the word criado mudo, mute butler. And then there's an emoji saying tisk, tisk, tisk. So, Ricardo, in your book, I have an issue with death. Just me. I don't think anyone else has it, because I will be the only one who will die. No one else will die. So I have this issue with death, and you talk about this in different moments to talk about the issue of death. And today, Rosa Monteiro, also in the previous table around the 18, she also said she's the same thing. She said she's also always interested about death, and people ask her why. And so, stop, talk about something else, ma'am. And then she's there talking about death, bringing this to her books. And this is something we see in your text. I wanted you to talk to us a little bit about this interesting relation you have between humor and death. Okay, I'm so joyful, aren't I? Well, the thing is, humor is a type of a resource we have, unique resource, to answer to that, to our fear of death. It's not an original. Umberto Eco already said that, and he said, I do believe, I believe that humor is the answer for the fear of death. I guess all of us have a little bit of this sympathy for this argument, because not only we already heard this phenomena in which people said that the last words of the dying person are funny. Sometimes it's true, it is. And normally these are famous last words, never happened, but it means that someone believed it did. I'm going to say that he said this before he died. There are many known sentences, like one very well known is, Buster Keaton was in his dying bed, and he was surrounded by friends. He couldn't move for much time. And then people asked, do you think he's dead? And he said, let's touch his feet, because when people die, their feet go cold. And so he opened his eyes and said, Joan of Arc didn't get cold feet. Joan of Arc didn't get cold feet. So it's very improbable that he said that, but it's very significant that someone recorded this as famous last words. The most famous ones are from São Lourenço. São Lourenço was a priest, and he was brought in front of the emperor, and he was presenting the treasure of and he made a joke, São Lourenço, and he said, just a minute, let me get the treasure. And he walked around the city. He collected all the poors and presented this to the emperor. This is the treasure of the church, and the emperor didn't find that funny at all. And he killed Saint Lawrence, or São Lourenço in Portuguese. And he said, what is recorded in the legend is impossible. They would normally at the time were killed by the spade. So he died by fire, and in a grill, over a grill, and said that his last words were, I'm okay. You can turn me around. I'm already nice and warm on this side. But this is the thing. So what is this worth for? There's no doubt about that. But we live in a different way. If we are able to the last moment, you say, I'm ready to go. This side is cooked. Please turn me. And that's this inevitable end. So that's why I find it so miraculous to laugh and to make other people laugh. It's miraculous. We are the only animal that has this opportunity, that has this horrible information. We know that we will die. We are aware that we're going to die, of our extinction. So it isn't easy to live like that. But it seems that humor, what we call the meaning of humor, will supply us, momentaneously, will bring us relief. It's precarious. It doesn't last long, but this is what we have available. This is what we have, nothing else. I hope, as you know, I come from another hemisphere, another continent, to say this. We're going to all die I wish, I'm not sure. I hope I'm not revealing anything new to you guys. But anyways, we're all going to die. This is why humor and religion walk hand in hand, or sometimes not. They're enemies. It seems that the religious act will go in the sense of saying, everything is okay, but we will still make it. There is a life after death. And comedy will say, everything is okay. We already lost everything. We have nothing to gain. So this is also something that is good. It will relieve us. Let me just conclude by saying, I had a colleague when I worked in this newspaper, when I left college and when I graduated, it was a cultural review. And I tell this story in my book. In those days, where the newspaper seemed that we would go close, we don't have enough writing, everything is going wrong in the newsroom, everybody's running around in angst. And my friend, he was this editor, an old editor, and he looks at the newsroom and said, calm down. Victory is difficult, but it belongs to the other side. The victory is theirs. And we all know what is the original. The victory is difficult, but it's ours. But I would rather have my colleague's sentence, because it would be much better. Because first, victory belongs to them, but it's going to be difficult. Well, this serves us good. So, and also it states the truth. Sometimes life is more losing than winning. Third, even though we were going to lose, there is some value in keeping us, with the spirits high. And so it's comforting. And it makes us, helps laugh those who are in angst. So this is something priceless. So this is a value that might not serve so well, but I don't know of anything better. Oh, at this moment, you can see that I'm not as wise as he is, but we have the same hairstyle, alopecia, because we lost hair in the same place. So from this standpoint, I guess this is a homogeneous and harmonious program or table. And then Janaisa is quite the contrary with her.
They think about everything in the organizing committee. Aren't they great? Yes. It shines here and it shines off to the audience. And Rosa Montero, she was much, much better before.
So there's this question that interests me. I always like to raise this question. It has to do with orality. We are an event, of course, of literature. We're talking about books and stories that are told in books. But we should never forget that we have 7,000 languages in the world, and many of these languages are oral languages. So we live in a society that is based in writing, but that's not how everyone in the world lives. So while I was reading the two books, both constructs or destroys, when you think about the importance of orality, I'm already guiding. You can see my bias. You see, I'm already saying that orality is important. And in the case of Caetano, the text uses the word forrobodó, a big mix-up. It's a beautiful word. And then convince in the same page. Instead of using para, which is a conventional thing, or conventional, he will use pra, P-R-A. This is something that is, even though it is the use we do, I'm going pra somewhere, I'm going somewhere, I'm gonna go somewhere. So this is interesting because in this text, a text that was produced when he became a professor, a full professor at the university. So he presents this project as a project of a scientific publication as a full professor in an environment where orality, this type of orality can be many things, but this more academic when it's something more informal in this case. So how do you see this? How do you see yourself in the different environments and orality reaching you in this book? A book that is scientific. Caetano is an amazing publisher for science. In the case of Ricardo, this Superman of humor, and if you think that neither edifies nor destroys, is these texts come from there, from these scripts. Ricardo is also a script writer. So Conceição Evaristo, for instance, I've used it in a million places. She talks about the betrayal of writing. It's as if writing would betray this element of orality. And I thought about this when I was reading Ricardo, because I thought it was very funny, but at the same time I thought, what are the movements you had to do? Because if this text was considered for a podcast, these are other resources you have available. So when you put it on paper, when you prepare your TV programs, when you present your plays, you also have other resources available. The gesture, the tone of your voice, everything is there. So how can you leave this orality and reach this text here on paper? I'm not sure if what I'm bringing makes sense. So these texts were written for me to read into the mic. These are the scripts for my podcast, so they were written with that intention in mind. Orality is important for me as a comedian because I never forget that words are also a set of noises, and that there are funnier noises than others. Any child knows that. There are certain noises that are funnier. There's a book of a Brazilian writer, Campos de Carvalho, and he has a book called O Púcaro Búlgaro. And the reason for it to be called the Púcaro Búlgaro is because the words Púcaro Búlgaro are funny. These are two weird words. And it couldn't call the bald Moldavo. So Púcaro Búlgaro are these words that they have a good sound. And it talks about a Púcaro Búlgaro, but it's different. So the words are there because they have a fun noise to them. So in this book, there's a chapter about timing. It's very important. Humor is timing, even though it's a concept that, ironically enough, I believe it has to do with precision, but it's not that. It's just a lack of preciseness. You have to think about, how do we define timing? It has to do with orality, with the moment that when a comedian or everyone has their own timing. You maybe did the truck, with a baby, so now you see me, now you don't. Everyone done it. There's a timing. If you do it fast, the baby won't laugh. And I said, Ricardo's not here. Then 15 minutes later, I take it out. The baby won't laugh either. The baby won't laugh. They already forgot that I exist. So everybody has an idea of a good timing. Maybe a rudimentary idea of timing, but still. And I guess this is why we need to have a sensitivity, that you will acquire something, that people will understand and learn. But I hope machines will never do this. The sensitivity. Every day I go to ChatGPT, try to see if it's funny already, just to see how long I still have to work. I am still very comfortable because until now, not funny at all, not at all, and more than that. The other day, I opened ChatGPT and Lip Sync, which is the Chinese artificial intelligence. I tried to make this intrigue. I'm talking to ChatGPT, and they're saying you're stupid. Nothing. But I had a long conversation with ChatGPT, and I asked, "Listen, tell me something funny so that I can seduce a woman." He said, "No, you can't do that. It's very wrong. You shouldn't seduce anyone." I said, "What? I'm not trying to fool anyone. It's seduce. I thought seduce something is beautiful. No, you shouldn't. People will feel deceived. No. listen, in this scenario, there's a consentment. It's okay. We are interested in one another. Tell me something to tell a woman. So this imaginary woman has consented, and she's very interested in me because that's why she's an imaginary woman, and and I'm interested in her. So consenting adults, and we're in bed. So tell me something exciting. Well, what's exciting for one might be offensive to the other. So I mean, so then I was getting really pissed. I mean, what are you, a nun or something? And I was exasperated. And then I said, "Can you imagine it's you? You were in bed with a woman. You want you want to fuck a toaster." So what would you say to a toaster if you wanted to fuck a toaster? And what would you talk or try to convince it to do? And I said, even the toasters will have to give their consent. And I thought, we shouldn't be afraid because this guy is really stupid, incapable capable of taking the virginity of Casas Bahia. Anyways, so the question was orality. Maybe I didn't tackle that matter, but anyways, good luck, Caetano. I'm sorry. Good luck.
Okay, should I talk about orality or the toaster? Okay, Caetano, give it a go, give it a go. You try your best. Okay, I'm a serious person. I'm a faculty professor. Okay, I'll talk about orality. Writing, I mean, this fantastic technology that gives us the possibility of being here to communicate in the distance, that makes languages survive after you thought they had disappeared. We know this, and we like it, we love it. Nevertheless, writing is a very limited technology. And sometimes we forget about this. For instance, when I wrote a play, I am desperate sometimes because I want to control tempo, the emphasis, the timing, the nuances without writing the script. There are italics, we have between inverted commas, we have different things that in the text you can say, but when it's oral, you don't, because writing is not the complete technology. It really cannot reproduce a series of things. For instance, in Curitiba, my hometown, Curitiba, we answer a question when they say not in a million years, and it means the opposite, and we give an intonation to the word that makes the person understand what you mean in Curitiba. And how can you write about the intonation of a word when Thomas Pincher in Mason and Dixon, he invents a character and the statements are closed with interrogation marks and admiration marks. You know these Americans, they say, "I'm tired"? It is a statement. Is it a doubt? I wanted to tell you something, like Americans say, and he reproduces this with admiration marks and question marks. He invented something because writing needs to invent new things, and it's a process that not only takes place in this representation, inability of reproducing intonations. Portuguese, we have 260 million people inventing, making mistakes, changing, finding by chance a new and funny way to say this or that. A writer, no matter where you come from, if it's your Guimarães, Roya, you or James Joyce, you are a person. You cannot compete with a collective of Brazilians, especially Brazilians. We have the memes and the jokes. It's endless. And this works for a language as a whole. There are always new jokes when you're writing and you're interested in representing real oral language in a region. You have an enormous source of language that is permanently changing. Comedians are very attentive. They're always paying attention to new expressions, jokes, what people say in the streets, and use this efficiently in stages. And it would be stupid not to use this. I've always thought that we in Brazil, and we have the reputation of, I mean, inventing words and being funny, but we are very good also at maybe bowing our heads at things that do not deserve our respect. Literally, we took too long to make peace with the reality of Portuguese orality in Brazil, the representation of speech in literature that is not ridiculous or an exaggerated regionalism, pure and simple how people talk. For instance, do we have any books that say things that we say in the streets? Do we put that in writing? No, we don't. Sometimes on TV, in the movies, in the theater, people say things and they say, how do you say this in front of other human beings? This would have never been said by a Brazilian under normal circumstances. We took a long time to make peace with our reality. And now I'm serious. You see, I came from the toaster to linguistic sociology. Thank you, thank you. You'll get my instant payment at the end of the month. Okay, but this has to do with sociology in a way. We in Brazil have a lot of issues, but the issue that interests me and the little thing, because we're talking about the details, is the difficult that we have with dealing with what's specifically Brazilian in terms that are not as absurdly critical or denial or derogatory. We have the difficulty of accepting what's truly Brazilian as legitimate, new, and good. We have a hard time to accept it. That's it.
So now there's an excerpt from your book. At a given moment of your book, you're going to say, page 25. So I decided to present this by the body of the Brazilian language, to find in it the scars of the most difficult moment, the belly button that will link us to everything else, the tattoos, the adornments that they will in time, the words that will bring us to other words. And here you're going to talk about Brazilian language. So here, I wanted to go back to what you were saying before. Yeah, now you're going to throw us to the lions here. Fine. Look at the guy. Look at him. We don't want to go against each other. I'm sorry.
I mean, it was a slip of the tongue. I mean, I say this in Latin dust. I mean, when in powdered Latin, when we see this, verify Galindo 2025. I say this in powdered Latin. The name of a language is a non-issue. It's a non-problem. I personally deal with this. I speak Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, Portuguese language, and it is not a political positioning in neither of those cases. I mean, it's just different ways of talking about that. I mean, and we talked about this when we met right now. I insist, linguistically, there is no absolute criteria to determine what are different languages or similar varieties of the same language. It's a question of political will. Brazilians never had the will to mark this distance. And this says so much about us. Good things and bad things. Me, personally, I believe that there is no interest in breaking up a relationship, a symbolic thing like tearing up your T-shirt or whatever. No. We don't want to break up with Portuguese language or Portugal. That's not the thing, and it shouldn't be expressed in these terms. But yes, in a way, we should come to terms with the fact that yes, what has been developed here is a very unique variety of the European Portuguese language, and that this very singular variety is characterized by traits, scars of the presence of enslaved Africans and the presence of the original peoples and the types of learnings in the learnings and in things that we inherited from these languages when they learned Portuguese, and the Portuguese language for us at the same time, it was a punishment and a present. We're in no position, like other colonial countries, to regret a lost past Celtic language that nobody uses in Great Britain. The indigenous languages in Brazil never had this space in recent history. Portuguese, on the other hand, comes from a country in which it is so radically divided in many ways, multiple in many ways, in good things, culturally, musically, cultural. It's cultural diverse. There are 250 different Portugals. There's no one single thing that gives us an uniformity. We are all, or almost all, a great portion of these peoples use the same language. We can travel kilometers and kilometers, and maybe we will never be welcomed with bienvenidos in Spanish. But the nice thing about this all is that almost all of us use this language throughout all our lives in this country. This is very rare. This is pressure, actually. We are defined in a very deep manner as the crazy, weird guys and women in Latin America that speak Portuguese. And that's the thing. It defines us. And it's not small. It is a very strong and powerful thing. We have to make peace with this fact. We really need to accept the African presence. We need to understand that everything, and quote, unquote, I will say the schools that in a sort of way are oppressive and that are is characterized as horrible, negative, horrible, is racialized, and it comes from slavery. And we need to change this. We have to enrich our relationship. We need to really make this richer. And give me a minute. And Powdered Latin will be published in Portuguese. And the publisher said that I had to write additional chapters, and they wanted me to include something about our Portuguese. So now this is more important because our Portuguese is read in Portugal, and it's our Portuguese because it's different. It's different in any place. We don't have to fit all in one small box.
Eu estava passeando.
I was looking at the other works by Ricardo, and in this book, which is Being Alive Hurts, the best chronicles of Ricardo Araújo Pereira, there is a specific chronicle called to talk in favor of chloroquine. And in this first, and he will say, just because all the studies indicate that chloroquine does not work, people decided to conclude that it didn't work. Because it's just one of these difficult ideas. It's Maduro, Bolsonaro, Trump, statesmen who know that they will never be fooled by things such as facts, and they will continue to recommend the use of this medication. It is good for malaria, and what it has in common with COVID, it's also a disease. But just because they capriciousness, that coronavirus will not allow it to be killed by a medication that kills other infections. Maybe now they will say it's probably that they will stop and think about, and maybe sooner or later it will accept that it should die. And it's called this in favor of chloroquine.
E eu queria te perguntar, né?
And I was going to ask you, Ricardo, in your trajectory as a comedian, your relation between humor and politicians. This is, of course, something very present in those who work with humor, those who write chronicles, essays. If this transformed in time, how was it for you during the pandemic, for instance? I guess it's a thing as a humor and death. It's a similar relation. It exists, it's inevitable, they exist, and they are inevitable. So the best thing we can do is laugh at them. That's a method, I must say. In this concrete case, yes, during the pandemic, sometimes it's, we need to laugh so as not to cry. It's important to say that people will put in humor absurd hope. They think that this political life will produce some kind of effect. I've written in newspapers in the U.S. saying the John Oliver effect. He's able to attack Trump like no one else. No one, but he's going to go down in the polls. Did it happen? No. There was the election, and that's it. He was elected. That's not how it works. We shouldn't, put all your hope in comedy. It has the effect of laughing at them, which is not bad. During the pandemic, all the things I was, pay attention to your hardship here in Brazil, and then all of a sudden I found it funny when there is a something that a suit in court that he might be in prison, and when he said I'm an athlete and it will just be like a light flu. And so maybe the issue is more than a little tiny imprisonment. Maybe he will be ready for more than that. And I was all surprised. No, I'm old. All of a sudden, I'm going to be in prison. No, so what about your history as an athlete? Your past as a history? Oh, we're reaching the end of this round table, or the table. I thought the ones outside were, I want to see the Ola because there's no questions here, but I thought everything flowed nicely here. So I wanted to close with Leminski. I want to read an excerpt from Leminski. It ties to what Ricardo just said about if a joke will maybe serve to uproot Trump. In arts, and we normally say, oh, so what is this for? What is the use of this? And in literature, it's the same. In humor, it's the same. It's very common for you to listen to this. I'm a linguist. Everybody asks me. It's not even art. What do you do? What do you do? Do you build something? Do you sell something? So what do you do? So I found this poem by Leminski, and I'm going to read, and maybe I would like you to comment for us to close. Is that okay with you guys? So I expect you to be a critic, and Anna is looking at you, so you better do good. So, reason to be, my purpose. I write, and that's it. I write because I need it. I need it because I feel dizzy. No one has anything to do with that. I write because the day breaks, and the stars reminds me of letters on a paper. The spider will prepare its will prepare its bed, and the fish will kiss and bite. And I just write. Should there be a reason why? Should there be a reason why we write?
No.
I'll let you wrap up. I'll give you the floor.
So, let me just let you know, we know here. Oh, okay. 10, 9, 8, 7.
I want to quote Ricardo. You say this story about this guy that if he walks from the jail to the rope, if he laughed, it would be weird. We're walking from the cradle to death, and we're laughing, aren't we? So everything we do ultimately is that. It's a brief interval between nothing and nothing. We opened our eyes and woke up here in this chaotic and an improbable place called Brazil, and we're trying to do is give sense to this all. We write books, we sing songs, we go to literary festivals, we kiss and hug. I don't know about you, but after the pandemic, I hug everybody. I love to touch people after, yes, with consent, of course, yes. And we try to give things meaning, and to give things meaning is basically what we do when we do nothing. I mean, when we do things that are useless. To find the cure for malaria or construct a road, that has a purpose. But we have fun without doing anything that's useful. We have fun because we can and because we want to.
Yeah.
You can do it, Ricardo. There's this verse. I write because I need it, and I identify myself with that. Identify with that. Sometimes I only know when I think about them after I write about it. So when I write about it, I understand what I think about it. And there's other thing. I like words. Most of the time, I like words more than what they actually mean. This happens in restaurants. You have the menu coming, and I read it, and I think lascas de bacalhau, so codfish over a bed of spinach made in its own juice, and I think it's delicious. And then and then you have the dish coming to you, and it's nothing like the description. Describing the dish was much better than the dish itself. So words, I guess it's fascinating. The trajectory. The books are not this, the Ponta da Língua of Professor Galindo, but other powdered Latin. Throughout this journey as a reader, we find out things that are extraordinary and that are fascinating. Technology, but the word minuscule. When you think about músculo, we're talking about rats. We don't know. Muscles, the letters. Mush means mus means rat. And culo is small. It's like a cubicle, cratical or something like that. So it's because Romans thought that when the muscle moved, it looks like it got a little mouse in your arm. So it doesn't help, but it's fascinating. It doesn't help us in anything, but it's fascinating. So I would like to conclude by saying about Portuguese and the way that this language that we speak, it is so seductive, enticing, and this quality that sometimes misses somewhere else. Maybe it's because we speak it and it's very close to us. We're intimate with our own language. But there's a trait of etymology that I never was able to confirm. I heard a professor once explaining, even it looks a dialect in India, in which the word pepper, pimenta, the word pepper, pimenta, is putpari. And the reason for which this is such, putpari sounds like son of a bitch in Portuguese, is that when the first person came to India and they said, taste this pepper. And so putpari sounds like motherfucker in Portuguese. So he said something very close to putpari. And that's what it says. And they thought that that was the name. They thought the word was so beautiful, adequate for the feeling with the pepper. It said, that's going to be putpari forever. So motherfucker is the word in this dialect in India for peppers. Hot peppers. Thank you very much for staying with us until now. It was a pleasure to have you. Thank you.